Okay, before we start this next one, I want you to rip off a sheet of paper from your notebook and write down P, that stands for parentheses, and then skip over the E. You're going to write MD, that stands for multiplication. Actually, scratch that, flip it over. P, that stands for parentheses. M stands for multiplication. And A, that stands for addition. Now you're wondering, what about subtraction? Well, we have a way we're going to deal with subtraction. So I'm going to have that out to the side. And now here are the problems I'm going to do. Okay? We have -7, parentheses, -2, plus 3. Now, you need to know when the sign's a negative sign or when it's a subtraction sign. And here's what you do. If the negative's at the beginning of the whole problem, circle it. That's a negative. I'm going to circle my negatives. If a negative is the first thing inside of parentheses, it's a negative. So either the first thing in the whole problem or the first thing in a parentheses. So those things I just circled are negatives. They're not minus signs. Okay? Now you need to put operators between the -7 and the -2. If you don't have a operation sign, you put a dot because that means times. And then between the -2 and the 3, you got plus. Now I attack this problem. So parentheses. Now I have a parentheses, but there's only one number inside, so I don't worry about that. Multiplication. Well, yeah, that's the dot. Okay. So I take -7 times -2. You can do that on a calculator. -7 times -2. 14. So we cross that out, and it's 14 plus 3. That equals 17. Okay, next problem. 4 parentheses -7. And I'm just going to write what I see on the document. Okay. Now, it's the first thing in a parentheses, so it's a negative. That is not in a parentheses, so that is a minus sign. I do not circle it. And then that's the first thing in the parentheses, so it's a negative. So those things I just circled are negatives. So we have 4 and -7. There's no symbol, so I put a dot. Then the -7 and the 3, we have a minus sign. Okay. If you have a minus sign, make it plus, and then make the number after it negative. That's how you're always going to deal with a minus sign. The -3 and 4 would be times, and I'll circle it because that's a negative now. Okay. 4 and 8 is plus, and then 8 and -5 is times. So parentheses, you just have one number inside of each one, so you can't simplify within. Multiplication, there's 3 dots. There, there, and there. So I take 4 times -7, -28, plus -3 times 4, it's -12, plus 8 times -5, it's -40. So I just add those then. So on a calculator, -28 plus -12 plus -40. -80 is what I got. Okay, next problem. 10 parentheses -3 plus parentheses -6. Okay, so let's circle the negative signs. If it's the first thing in a parentheses, it's a negative, so I circle that. So 10 and -3, that's multiplication. -3 and -6, I have a plus sign. Okay, so I'm good. Remember, it's the minus signs I need to make plus and then negative right after it. Okay, so parentheses. Well, I just have one number in each side, so I can't simplify. Multiplication right there. So 10 times -3, -30. Plus -6. So on a calculator now I plus those two. -30 plus -6, -36. Okay, next, this is what the problem looks like, and we'll decide if something's a minus or if it's a negative here later. Okay, so if it's the first sign in a problem, it's negative. The first thing in a parentheses is negative. Now that's neither, so that's a minus. Don't circle it. That's the minus operation. First thing in a parentheses means it's a negative. So -8, -2, I put a times sign. The -2 and the -4, we have a minus. Now I don't like minuses, okay? So here's what I do with a minus. I make it plus, then I create a little squiggly line and make the number after it opposite. So the opposite of -4 is +4, okay? Now, parentheses, again, just one number inside all of your parentheses. Multiplication, there's the dot, so that's what I multiply. So -8 times -2 is +16. Plus +4. Now since 4 is positive, I can just write 4 down. And 16 plus 4 is 20. So when you have two pluses in front, you just write 1 plus. Okay, next one. 7, parentheses, -2, plus 2, parentheses, -16. So first thing in parentheses is a negative. And then the first, that's a -2. So the 7 and the -2, that's a times. The -2 and the 2 has a plus. I want pluses, I don't want minuses. The 2 and the -16, that's a times. Okay, so now parentheses, I just have one number inside. Now if there was two numbers, I'd do something inside there, but there's only one. So multiplication. So positive 7 times -2 is -14, plus 2 times -16 is -32. Now I add -14 plus -32, -46. Okay, next problem. -8, parentheses 3 plus 7. So that's a first thing in the problem's a -8, and that's the only one of those signs I have. So 8 and 3, that's multiplication. 3 and 7 is plus. Okay. So parentheses. Here's a parentheses, but there's only a 3 inside. So I only have one number inside. That's already simplified. Multiplication right here. Negative times a positive is a negative, and 8 times 3 is 24, and then plus the 7. So -24 plus 7 is -17. Okay, next. So since that's the first sign in the problem, it's a negative, so -4. That's the first sign in parentheses, so that's a negative to the 2. That's the first sign in parentheses, negative to the 4. So -4, -2, there's no symbol, so that's times. -2 and -4, we have a plus sign. Okay, that's good. We want pluses. We don't want minuses. So parentheses, well, I just have -2 and -4. That's the only number I have inside. Multiplication. Negative times a negative is a positive, and that would be 8. Plus -4. You can put it in parentheses, you don't have to. And 8 plus -4 is 4. I generally take away the parentheses when I drop it down. Okay, next one. -10, parentheses 3. Minus 2, parentheses -5. First, no, if it's the first thing in the problem, that's a negative to the 10. That's not in a parentheses, so that's a minus, okay? That's the first thing in parentheses, so it's a negative to the 5. So we have -10 and 3, so that would be times. 3 and 2 is minus. Now, I don't like minuses, so I kind of put a wall after the minus, and I go plus, and the opposite of 2 is -2. Just put a negative up there with the 2, okay? So it's a negative to the 2. We can circle it if you want. And then -2 and the -5 would be times. Okay. Now, parentheses. You have them, but there's only one number inside. Multiplication, okay? Right there and right there, okay? So we have negative 10 times 3. That's negative 30. Negative 2 times negative 5 is 10. And then we add negative 30 to 10. Negative 20. So basically the point here is you need to see when it's a minus sign, when it's a negative sign. Okay, next problem. Negative 3, negative 6, plus 7. So that's a negative sign. Can't be a minus sign when it's the first. It has to be a negative to the 3. That's in the first thing in a parentheses, so it's a negative to the 6. And then we have a plus, and then so that's it. So negative 3, negative 6, that's times. Negative 6 and 7, we have plus, okay? So parentheses, we just have negative 6 inside. Multiplication right there. Negative times negative is positive, and that'd be 18 plus 7. Plus the 7. So this times this was 18 plus the 7. 18 plus 7 is 25. Okay, negative 4, negative 5, minus negative 2. Now let's decide which one of these are minuses, which one of them are negative. So it's the first thing that's a negative to the 4. First thing in parentheses, negative to the 5. That's not the first sign in the problem, nor is it the first sign in parentheses. That's a minus, okay? So with a minus, when I run across a minus, I kind of make a wall after it. I make it plus, and then we make the number after it the opposite. So the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. So operations. Negative times, that's going to be a times. Negative 4, negative 5, and then plus 2. So parentheses, okay, we have them, but there's just one number inside, so I don't do anything. Multiplication. Negative times negative is a positive, 4 times 5 is 20. Plus, positive 2. You just take 20 plus 2, because on a calculator, if I try to go 20 plus 2, it says error, so it's just 20 with 1 plus and the 2, so it's 22. Okay, next problem. 12, negative 3, minus 7, negative 2. Okay, so that's a negative to the 3. That's not the first sign in the problem, and it's not the first sign in parentheses, so that's a minus. So with a minus, we want to make a wall, make it plus, and make the number after it negative. Just put it above and circle it. So that's negative 7. Okay. And then that can be circled because that's the first sign in the parentheses. So what are the operations? 12 and negative 3. There's no sign, so that's times. Then negative 3 and negative 7 has the plus sign. Then negative 7 and negative 2, that would be times. Okay. Okay, so parentheses, we have them, but we can't do anything inside. Multiplication, right there and right there. So 12 times negative 3, negative 36. Negative 7 times negative 2 is 14. Okay. Then negative 36 plus 14. Negative 22. So again, if you come across a minus sign, an actual minus sign, not a negative, okay, like right outside there, you make a wall, make it plus, and the number after it switches to opposite, okay? It was positive 7, now it's going to be negative 7. Okay, next one. Okay, first thing in the parentheses, negative. That's a negative. I'm circling the ones that are negative, so I know those are negative numbers and they're not minus signs. Then that's not the first sign in the parentheses. It's also not the first sign in the whole problem. So that's a minus, so we're going to fix that. Okay? So I make a little wall, plus, and the 5 after it becomes opposite, negative 5. Okay, so it's a negative 5. And that's the first sign in parentheses, so that's negative. Now we need to put the operators. So negative 5, negative 2, no sign between, that means times. Negative 2 and negative 5, there's a plus sign, so that's good. Negative 5 and negative 3, there's no sign, so I know I'm timesing those. Okay, parentheses, just one number inside every one. Multiplication there. So those are the two numbers we're multiplying, and there. So I line up my plus. Negative 5 times negative 2 is 10. Negative 5 times negative 3 is 15. And then 10 plus 15 is 25. Okay, next problem. 4, negative 2, plus 10, negative 7. Okay, that's the first sign in the parentheses, so negative. When it comes first in the parentheses and I see that sign, it's not a minus, it's a negative. Same with that first sign in the parentheses, it's going to be a negative. So between the 4 and the negative 2, I have times. Between the negative 2 and the 10, we have plus. That's good. It's the minuses, I have to make the little wall and switch it. Okay. 10 and negative 7, that would be times. Okay, parentheses, yeah, you have negative 2 and negative 7, so you can't do anything about that. So 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Use a calculator if you're not sure. 10 times negative 7 is negative 70. Then I add negative 8 plus negative 70 is negative 78. Next one, negative 6, negative 2, minus negative 4. That's a negative. So is that. That's a minus. So what we need to do is make a wall, make it plus, and the number after it goes opposite. So what's the opposite of negative 4? Be positive 4. Okay. So what are your operators? Negative 6, negative 2, that would be times. Negative 2 and positive 4, we have a plus sign. Okay. So as long as we have an operation between them, we're good. I only put the dot when there is no operation sign. I don't know what I'm doing, so now I know I'm timesing. Okay, parentheses, you just have one number in each. Multiplication. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 6 times 2 is 12. Plus positive 4, but when you're adding that, it's just 12 plus 4. So 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, next one. 8, negative 4, minus 2, negative 3. Okay, so that's a negative. It's the first thing in parentheses. That's not the first thing in the parentheses, not in a parentheses, and it's not the first thing in a problem, so that's a minus, okay? So we make it plus, and the number after it becomes its opposite. So the opposite of 2 is negative 2, and I'll circle that. Okay, so negative 2. And then that's a negative. So between the 8 and the negative 4, that's a times. Between the negative 4 and the negative 2, we have our plus sign. That's good. Negative 2 and negative 3, that's a times. Okay, so parentheses, I just got negative 4, just got negative 3. So multiplication. Really, in this part, I don't do anything about the parentheses. I just go to my multiplication. So 8 times negative 4, negative 32, plus negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. The negative 32 plus 6 is negative 26. Use your calculator. Okay, then the next one. Negative 5, negative 3, minus 4, negative 3. That's a negative. It's first thing in the problem. That's first thing in a parentheses. That's not the first thing in the problem, nor is that sign the first in a parentheses. That is a minus. We don't like minuses. If it's plus, great. But if it's minus, we're going to make the wall, make it positive, and the number after it turns to opposite. So the opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. Circle it. And then that's the first sign in a parentheses. So I have negative 5, negative 3. No sign, so that's times. Negative 3, negative 4. I got the plus sign there. Okay, don't put a dot. There's already a plus sign. -4, -3. That'd be a times sign. Then I execute my multiplication, 2 of them. Negative times negative is a positive, 5 times 3 is 15, plus negative times negative is a positive, 4 times 3 is 12. 15 plus 12 equals 27. Okay, and that's it for that.